Hello, everyone. Thanks for coming to our training today on development budgets. And so we are going to go ahead and jump right in. And I hope you're all good and having a good day so far. My name is Ilona Nagy, and I am part of the tripod of the HOME-ARP team. And Jody, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah. Hey, how is everyone? My name is Jody Key, and I'm a HOME-ARP specialist.
Excellent. So Jody and I are going to be on today, and it's just going to be the two of us. And so we're going to kind of answer the questions as best as we can today. And if we don't, or we're unable to, if there's a piece that we may need to talk to someone, we'll go ahead and finish it up in the chat, not the chat, but the question and answer document online. So just be aware of that. So definitely give us all of your questions. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. Okay. So we're going to go over a quick project overview, talk about the posted questions. I don't know if we'll maybe do a little bit of a website review, the development budget section, and then your key takeaways. So same agenda, guys. So just remember, right now we have about $8.7 million to distribute for non-congregate shelters. That can, as we've talked about before, that can increase a bit or decrease depending upon needs. So luckily HUD gave us a little bit of flexibility with that. So we can consider all circumstances. Please know that this is a community-driven process, and leveraging not only funding and resources, but also just who you are in community with. So looking at the data, looking at who your partners are, and really just leveraging those relationships as well to just help build the non-congregate shelter program even stronger. Okay, so always have that kind of in the back of your mind. So let me pull it up real quick. The website, we are updating it on a regular basis. And so we have the shelter page. So if you just go ahead, if you get on our website for dca.ga.gov, if you type in HOME-ARP, this page should come up, or it should be one of the top few. And then at the top of it, go ahead and click here to access the application page. And this is all the information that you'll need regarding the non-congregate shelter application. The responses, like I said, if there are any questions today that for whatever reason, we may need to just get some thoughts from like Sam, who came last week, or Kelly, who's unable to be here today, we'll go ahead and post them here. Okay, so look for this little responses to the questions are posted here. And then also I've been updating the recordings and the PowerPoints here. So this will get you to a separate page, which the recording will take you to a YouTube page where it's at. And then up here would be all of the documentation. So including the PowerPoint and anything else we may have presented. Okay, so the website is a very useful tool. If you need anything else, let me know. I am kind of doing all the website stuff, so you tell me if you guys need more stuff. So please let me know. We want to make sure you're well informed. Next, so we did get a question that was great. Oh, thanks, Jody, for putting that up. If an organization does not conduct an annual audit of its financials due to its financial constraints and is not required to do so by the state of Georgia, based on annual revenue, are audited financials still required with an application? Are there any exceptions or additions?
I wonder why we would want DCA stuff. Get money from them. Yeah, this.
Okay. For additional instructions for the 501c3 organizations that wish to apply but do not have audits conducted? That is a great question. So with regards to that, so if the organization, because there may be some of you guys who are below threshold of the requirements for the state to have required audits every year. And so that may not be something that that's required of you at this time. And so you would like to, find out what an alternative is. So what you can do is a compilation of financial statements with review and certification from a CPA. That will suffice. And so that should be enough. Now, just know, though, that the purpose of the audits, we do that to ensure the organization can carry the financials and manage the grant. Okay, so if you happen to have a lower budget threshold kind of situation, that's fine. But I think it also, this is several $1 million that it's going to take probably to construct a shelter. And so the capacity to take on this kind of development would be something that we would take into consideration as well. It's not a no, it's just can you be prepared for that? So something to consider would be, making sure that you leverage and partner, like we were talking about just a few minutes earlier, with people in your community, with other agencies, in order to ensure that all the financials are covered in case a situation does arise. And Courtney, I'll answer your question in just a minute. So it's just really about managing those unforeseeable expenses that may come up. And, so consider a fiscal agent and partner, which may be necessary to the development of a shelter. Okay, so again, keeping in mind all of the contingencies, all of the potentials, and actually we're talking about the budget today, so this is perfect with regard to the development. Okay, so that's why taking a look at those unforeseen, looking at the big picture, being strategic is kind of important for this. So Courtney asked for the recording. I keep forgetting to do that for the recording, so I'm sorry for those in the past who were wondering what was written. For the required attachments, if a financial statement is included in your annual audit, do they need to be packaged separately, or can they stay combined in one document? That's a great question. You can go ahead and keep it combined in one document. The one thing I would state is make sure that you address it in your application. So, like I've stated before, we have intentionally kept the Excel spreadsheets unlocked. Okay. So, and what I'll do is actually, I'll show you right now, so then that way you know what to do. So in case of that situation, okay, so this is a perfect example, not only for this, but for several different ways that you can manage this. So we'll jump into this right now real quick. So I know that the financial statements were one of the requirements here. Right here, you can add, we're using this as an example, okay? And so if that's your situation, sorry, I was about to type and wasn't intending to, got to keep the T close at hand. So what you would need to do is essentially state, I'm just going to copy this, Courtney. So let's just pretend like right here was the financial statement piece, like it's noted in the other checklist. You would go ahead and you could check the box, and actually you could even add it too, but you would do a check because it's included, okay? And then state in a sense, the financial statement is included in our annual audit. And is combined in the one document. So this is where you would just communicate to us that scenario, so we know to look for it, okay? So if you guys, so again, just go ahead and utilize this. And as you can see, the only thing is I didn't really change what was already there. I just added to it. Okay, because we're going to be looking at a particular format. Okay, we're going to look at the same thing over and over again for each. And so for us to be like, oh, by the way, I mean, you can even highlight it in yellow to say, okay, I added something. So then that way we're aware to look for it, because we don't know what to look for unless you tell us. So if that's a situation that you are like, okay, here are the two, like the packet, these two areas that they both need, they're together, we'll just let them know that they're together. Okay, that's perfect. So again, just communicate with us what you're doing and what you have. So then that way we can take a very, we can look at the full picture. And I think that's probably the best way to describe what we're doing with this application, is we're wanting to see the big picture. I completely understand why other applications at many different State Department and even federal organizations, they have very specific requirements and they ask you to kind of fit into that box. And so I understand why, and this is basically we're shifting it because we understand that there are a lot of different situations throughout the state of Georgia, and we want to know what those are. Okay, so we don't want to limit ourselves or you to knowing the big picture, but that also means that you've got to give us the big picture. Okay, so so that's how you would do it, is just a really easy shift. You could even, like I said, you know, you would just go ahead and highlight it in yellow. And so that way we know the financial statement is included in your annual audit and is combined in the one document. Okay, so are there any other questions about that? And you are very welcome, Courtney. So, okay, so I'm going to move on to our next stuff, but that also gives you guys an idea as far as those financial audit pieces, what, you know, so if you don't have the 3 years of financial audits just because your budget isn't big enough, make sure that you know, have a compilation of everything. Make sure it is reviewed by a CPA, so that way everything looks like it's in order. They get kind of an official stamp, but also know that we're going to be looking at your capacity to handle this level of a project. Okay, so just understand the two sides. Okay, so moving on, because there's no more questions. Okay, Jody and I have been going through a web series, and some of you may have too, in HUD.gov. Well, actually, it's HUD Exchange, called The Barriers to Affordable Housing. It has been excellent. We have gotten a lot of ideas from it. I highly recommend you taking a look. This last one, which was yesterday, they talked about a good neighbor agreement. So when we start looking into, and this is for the next phase submission, this is not for this phase submission, but looking at your supportive services, getting your community on board for your development, those types of things. One of the things is they talked about several, if community members are, for whatever reason, unsure of the development of a non-congregate shelter in their area. And so they have a good, I guess in Seattle and other, I think I got one from Oregon too, a good neighbor agreement. So write this down, guys, this may be useful, to engage community in addressing concerns. And essentially it's like an MOU with the community. It was really kind of cool. Thank you. And I did try to look at the past, you know, the past trainings. Essentially, I was having a little bit of difficulty, so they may just be packaging it right now. So just be aware of that. But that is the website, so you can also Google and see, you know, as it comes up. So thanks, Jody. And also, one of the things they also did were different campaigns to educate their communities about what they were, you know, building and putting together and what that looks like and who's involved, who may be living in, you know, the affordable, it was mainly around affordable housing, obviously. and just talking about the tax credit and who it's assisting. And then the last thing that was interesting was they had a lived experience advisory committee. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's really a great idea too. So there may be a lot of different places that you guys can get thoughts and ideas to add to your application. So just be aware of that. In addition to that, and I just copied this from HUD Exchange, by the way. And so in addition to going through that, I would, there we go. I would also, again, we talked about the URA trainings. So the uniform relocation. So if you have relocation, HUD Exchange has those trainings as well. So take a look at HUD Exchange, see if there's any shelter trainings that are up, see if there's any trainings there that you can kind of get in. There's also HOME-ARP trainings if you guys want to go through those. So HUD Exchange is a great resource to take a look while you're putting the application together and to get you know, just additional pieces that may contribute to your application, okay? So let's talk about the development budget. So take a sip. So what we are going to be talking about today is all of the pieces with the budget. This may be a shorter training today, just because we only have 3 tabs, and they're longer tabs, but they're kind of self-explanatory. So we may not go the full hour today, which I'm sure you're all fine with. So let's go ahead and jump right in. I'm gonna grab the this guy right here to actually, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna take care of that there. So again, this is the checklist of required documentation. If there's additional documentation that you want to add, like I stated, going ahead and putting that into the checklist below is absolutely fine. Just adding to it and just saying, hey, we're going to add this and this and this to explain our entire situation. And so that is fabulous. So proof of access. So let's go through the checklist real quick. Proof of access to city and or county utilities for water, sewer, gas, and electric, or estimate of cost to install and connect. Again, that's to see if there's an infrastructure cost that you are going to take on. Because that's kind of important to make sure that you're connected to those things, because you're going to need them. So just be sure to, you know, have that, or you can even start getting it now, which isn't a bad idea, or those of you may have already started for the application. So we just need to know that what that looks like. So then that way we can tie it all together. Equity funds, if the organization is committing equity to the project, and then letters of commitment or terms for each development phase or financing source, if HOME-ARP is not the only funding or financing source. So it's basically just the backups. Okay, we just need backups of your funding and what you're going to do. And that includes with the estimates for costs. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move into the income piece. This should be calculating down here between these 2 tabs. So you can go ahead and utilize this to see if there is, to see if it's all adding up. It should, or at least, you know, I recommend having a little bit more funding income than expenditures, if that's at all possible, but please do not cut your expenditures in order to make your income look good. We want you guys to be fairly even, okay? So we really do need a very honest look at what this is going to cost, okay? So please be as upfront and honest around everything as possible. HOME-ARP funds, those would, I mean, I should have probably grayed that out. So it would be tentative funding, what you're requesting. And then any additional loans and other investments that you're getting from other programs. That would be in the other funding if you're getting anything from a community foundation, if you're getting anything from, excuse me, community foundations, United Way, if there's another, partner that you have who's contributing funds and you guys are doing it together. So just all the funding options. Again, you can add to this, you can add areas. I would just ask that you do it under other funding and inserting if you need to. Yes, ma'am. Oh, we have a question.
Yes, we have a question from Eugene Stanley. If we are redeveloping / scaling a current development that currently has utilities, can we attach a current utility bill that proves we have access on site?
That's fine. Yeah. So yeah, that's fine. And let me think this through. I would also say, we're developing and scaling a current development. So you would be rehabbing, Eugene. It sounds like. And adding a building. Okay. So with that, what I would say is there would need to be some communication with the utility company so that way we know the scope. Okay, so we not only need a confirmation that it can be there, but if there's going to be additional costs to expand and shift and maybe, add additional pipes, or, if you're adding a building, you're going to be needing, additional plumbing installed, you're going to be needing additional electric installed, things like that. And granted, that's on the development side, but if there's any shifts, I'm trying to think as far as, because that's really what construction would do. So Eugene, what I would say to that is I would check with the utility companies to make sure there isn't anything else you need from them. Okay. And in some way get a confirmation from them, if it's possible, in writing, an email, something like that, that could confirm that there's no other needs besides flipping a switch. I'm guessing that there isn't, but just to make sure that you do your due diligence. I don't know, I mean, from the basic, sentence that you've given me, I don't know the full scope. I would check with your utility companies and essentially if you can get some sort of basic documentation stating, yes, all we need to do is extend the service to this address. What we'll probably do is also let me go ahead and add to that answer. I'll go ahead and talk with our construction department if there's anything else utility-wise that needs to be completed as far as that due diligence. But I would also have you kind of reach out to them and just make sure, okay? Because sometimes there may be some unforeseen pieces. Yeah, okay, cool. So it's just basically doing, checking back with them that, okay, this is what we're doing. Do we have to do anything on your end? Yes or no, kind of thing. So I would check with them, but that was a great question. So, okay, so I think we're good with that. And we'll definitely, again, like I said, we'll talk with our construction department to see if there's anything that would come into play. I don't anticipate it, but again, it's good to check. So, okay. So going into this, adding a line if you need to, or a row, that's the better term. Adding a row if you need to, if there's something else that needs to be added, if you have, 5 other funding streams, which would be awesome instead of just 4. Go ahead and add a row. Just make sure. I mean, and this is, I would probably take a basic Excel spread, basic Excel course, but oh, the subtotals, I did not do that. Okay, so just making sure that they all add together. So I would, can't believe I didn't do that. You can auto sum that just to make sure they're all there. Okay. And if we need to do that, we can go ahead and do that on our end too, just to add it. So don't lock yours either, because we may need to do some basic, formulas in order to make sure we add everything up and to make sure it's correct. Okay. Questions? Yeah, great. Not seeing any little 3 dots. Okay. This is where the bulk of the information is. So development expenses. This is a very, very big spreadsheet, and I know can be a little daunting. Please know that what we tried to do is group them in different areas to make it less daunting. Okay. So essentially, the land, buildings, and closing costs, site and demolition, direct construction, as well as any building requirements, including builder permit, permits and fees and things like that. Professional pieces, architects, any environmentals that you've had done. Now remember, the environmental review is being taken care of by DCA, so you don't need to include that, and that's okay. And you can even put, DCA is completing. We did this before, that was confirmed by management, so that's why that's not stated there. Any attorney fees, legal fees, that there's a good chance that that's going to be a part of this whole scenario. So just make sure you have a good legal advisor / lawyer helping you, who's aware of what to do. Construction pieces, permanent financing, developer costs. And again, there's a little red note piece there that you can pull up as far as developer fees. And for this, I don't, and it just depends on who your developer is. Let me just put it like that. Relocation costs, again, don't forget that if you are relocating any businesses, nonprofits, and/or farms, those relocation fees need to be included as well, according to the Uniform Relocation Act, because HOME-ARP is a part of the HOME program, which means the URA does apply. Okay, so be aware of those relocation fees. Furniture, fixtures, and equipment, and others. Now, mainly for the furniture, fixtures, and equipment, we can't. Again, the operating pieces and making sure that we have like good sofas, that's not something you can charge to HOME-ARP. This would have to be in a different area, but if there's like built-in cabinetry and things like that, that would be something that we would probably need to discuss if you wanted to charge it to HOME-ARP, okay? I'm guessing you would need to show that it's really important that you have that and that we should pay for it, but just be aware of, so kind of piece through. I would probably make sure that you, and Jody, if you could write down real quick, let's get, in the manual it states this too, but what we'll do is we'll post, yes. Couches should not be charged to HOME-ARP. That is correct. So it's mainly the bricks and sticks. So the building pieces would need to be focused. The furniture pieces, if I'm not mistaken, cannot be included, Evan. That's correct. So the question for everyone listening in later, did I just hear that couches would not be able to be charged to HOME-ARP? And that is confirmation, yes. However, what I want to do is I'm going to take from the manual. That's what I was just going. Thank you. The next question is there a list of eligible furniture, fixtures, and equipment? I'm going to get that for you. We have a piece of that in the manual that's in the download that y'all have. But what we'll do is we'll do a separate what you can charge to HOME-ARP and what you can't charge to HOME-ARP list. And I'll put that in the list of documents that we post to the website. Okay, that may take another day or two, so look for that list probably on Monday versus tomorrow. I can get the PowerPoint and the YouTube up like within the next 24 hours, but that may take another few days. Okay, so we'll get you a list of eligible furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Thank you for writing that down real quick for me, Jody. I appreciate it, just so that we don't forget. So what I wanted to make sure that we hit with this particular section, though, is, oh, absolutely. And I didn't realize that that was really missing until we were kind of talking about it. So, okay. And the last part that I wanted to state before well, there's two things. One is you can put the funding sources up here. So if you have a United Way, and if you have a loan from someone, and if you have other funding sources, this is what you're charging to each of those different areas. Okay, so make sure you state that. And then here with the HOME-ARP requested, I'm going to highlight that so we can see the end here. Okay, we have the amount of units, so that way we can also determine the cost per unit that you're asking for HOME-ARP. Okay, so essentially, each of you can ask for the entire development to be funded by HOME-ARP. That is an option. However, if we have 10 applications that all ask for HOME-ARP to fund the entirety of their developments, we will not be able to fund all of them. Okay, so we would have to choose between them. If you leverage your funds, if all 10 of you leverage your funds and find other, if your city or local government wants to help fund it, if you have United Way that contributes, if you have community foundations, you leverage those funds, you have funds yourself. That's great. You've done capital campaigns. Then we would clearly be able to fund more developments. Okay, so just think about the bigger picture. We would love to be able to choose as many as we possibly can with the money that we have. Okay, and so part of that responsibility is on y'all. So that just is a very, and it's a basic, funding, I guess, structure. That's not the word I'm looking for, but it's a basic funding principle. That's the word I'm looking for. So if you guys are able to leverage and partner and you're all asking for $1 or $2 million, that looks like 6 or 8 different developments versus 2 or 3. Okay, so let's do this for all of Georgia and not just your area. Let's think of the state as a whole, because that's what we're trying to do too. Okay, because we know that these non-congregate shelters need to be throughout the state. Okay, so just putting that out there. Okay. Lastly, we have contingency mentioned in here specifically, and I want y'all to, so when, and I'm just going to state something that I'm guessing all of you know, okay? Budgets at this part of the development and this part of the application are going to be really hard to know the definitive numbers because you guys aren't in. And if you can't even buy land right now, you're going to ask HOME-ARP to help you acquire that land. You can do nothing except a general, like we talked about last week, this general agreement that yes, we can buy the land, but nothing can be, you can't move forward on it until we get everything approved from HUD. Okay. So that said, I want you guys to have a decent enough of contingency and buffer for the unforeseen costs that may come with the development, okay? So usually it's about 5 to 10% that's put in to take care of the question marks that can come up, okay? If you are able in whatever way to justify more than that, that's fine, but you're gonna have to explain to us why you're gonna need more than 10% of your budget as contingency, okay? But we are also gonna be looking that you have contingency in there, okay? And if that's covered by HOME-ARP, if it's covered by another funding source, that's fine. But we wanna know that you guys are considering the buffer piece, okay? Because especially what we have noticed, and I'm sure you all have heard about it, in our affordable housing developments with tax credits and things like that, we hear often from the developers about the cost of wood going up, which we all know was an issue, you know, last year. And other funding needs for the actual construction and costs that they're going up in all different areas for all different reasons, lots of different reasons. So we just want you guys to be thinking about that. That's why kind of getting some of the estimates in there, if it's possible for you to support some of your costs with those estimates, but also knowing that those that you're talking to get those estimates are giving you, saying this is good for 30 days, even the estimates. I think it used to be 60 or 90 days that the estimates were good for, and they're actually making those shorter too. So we fully understand that, but we just want to know, again, similar to the question around the utilities, that there's due diligence going on, that you're really checking into it to make sure that this is as accurate as it possibly can be, given that you've not been approved for our funding. I don't know what your status is with your other funding, and everything is just kind of questionable. So we do understand that, okay? This budget is not in stone, but we wanted to get at least a good outline in stone about what you're gonna do. So, so do you guys have any questions right now? I just kind of did a lot of randoms, you know, not really random, but there's a lot to this, but also I don't know what you're developing, so I can't be super specific either. Okay. Okay. Well.
Hey, Alona.
Yes.
This is Evan. I figured I would just
Yeah,
ask
that's
this
fine.
question instead of typing the whole thing. So as you know, we've got, a good amount of local funds that we're going to be putting towards this project, and we're anticipating a 60-bed facility. However, I think in the initial, I'm still a bit sort of questioning the whole procurement thing, and how we're doing some of the things, because we're sort of moving forward because we do have local funds that we're doing. So I think we were thinking about this as more of a phased approach.
That's
because
great.
of the procurement concerns that you guys had sort of brought up with the current. We haven't gone out to bid with a contract or anything like that yet. Or anything, but we're working with an existing architect, and we've done a lot of the land surveys, and we're sort of in that process. So I'm trying to kind of imagine how we are leveraging, the existing, land value, and the existing local funds that we have dedicated to this project, and how we sort of demonstrate that within this whole scope, being that we're kind of looking at this piece to define it, I guess, as a phase 2 construction, so that we don't run into any kind of concerns that you guys have regarding procurement with existing activities that we're doing like right now. Does that make sense? Is that
it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
I guess my first question would be, you mentioned architect, you mentioned land and all those pieces. Are you wanting to charge any of those costs to HOME-ARP, or you guys are covering that with what you have thus far?
We're covering that with what we have thus far.
Okay, So I think the procurement piece really is more about when you start charging it to HOME-ARP. Okay. Now, I do know that that could be, from what I've read, that's the way that we've understood it. And that's what Kelly has communicated. I'm partially, with HUD, they always come back and be they're like, we didn't say that. And you're like, oh, we kind of think you did. And
Yeah,
so
I've
and
had those
that's-
experiences, so I
yes.
kind of know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Right. And so you're trying to cover all your bases, which is great. What I would say is this. Specifically for this application, I would complete the budget to the best of your ability, okay? But I would also include, if there is a better way to express what you're doing that isn't on this workbook, please add it to your submission.
Okay.
Okay. So again, this is flexible for a reason, so we could get the big picture.
Sure.
And if there is a specific, if you want to go ahead and show us what phase 1 is and then what phase 2 is, and this is what we want HOME-ARP to pay for, that's great. So if there is an additional, even if you want to put it into an additional workbook, or you could even add tabs to show that. And just, again, highlight those at the bottom saying, oh, by the way, these are included that demonstrate what we're doing. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, and because it's things like, the drawings, for example,
Right.
and the way that we anticipate, the whole layout. We've actually got it listed as phase 1 and phase 2,
Great.
because I feel like, we're on a schedule, that may actually mirror sort of what's going on. We're going to be getting final commission approval on the scope of the project
That's great.
next month. And
Yeah.
I think we've got this submission and then the next submission, and then you guys will be announcing awards. I think is November 15th. Is that the timeline?
That's the plan.
And
Yeah.
and if we get awarded in this process with you guys, we may end up being able to follow your procurement standards, along with your procurement standards with this mirrors our existing procurement policies and the Athens Clarke County existing procurement policies. So I don't feel like we'll run into a hiccup, other than the fact that if the timing, I think, is what I'm concerned about. Like, if we go ahead and do this prior to award, even if our procurement and everything follows that standard, it's still, I'm worried that it will still cause concern on y'all's part if we do get awarded with these things. So I'm trying to.
The only thing, good question. The only thing is that if you have a procurement policy, which you said you have, you're following the procurement policy, not only for the HUD requirements, excuse me, but for what's required for Athens, and other other organizations are requiring it of you as well. Groups that are having to do procurement for a grant writer would be doing that before they're getting the HOME-ARP funds.
Yeah.
So as long as you're following the procurement process regarding 2 CFR 200, which it sounds like you're doing, I don't think you're going to run into a problem. You just need to make sure that anyone who's contracted needs to go through that procurement process. One other thing, though, is that if it's 60 beds, you're going to run into Davis-Bacon. So just be aware that if you're adding HOME-ARP funds to that, if you guys do get awarded, it's going to up the cost. So just be aware. And then the other thought I had was, so it's not so much the procurement I would be worried about with the phases. I think it's more like the like the acquisition, the breaking ground, those pieces, I think you're going to have to really define that well, because technically you can't break ground and do specific building pieces with HUD funding until HUD approves it. And so I think it's more you're moving forward on the actual development piece before you get the okay from, from us.
Yeah.
And then from there from HUD, and that includes the environmentals and things like that. So what I would probably, and so it sounds like you guys are far more along than other agencies we've talked to about the development that they're going to go into. So, because there's very few other developments that we're aware of that have the scale of the phases that you just mentioned. So.
Yeah, and I think, as far as breaking ground, trying to define what you guys consider, I mean, no ground necessarily has been broken yet.
Right.
Now we have done environmentals. Well, I guess we need to, if there's a space I can go, you guys haven't done I know I missed last, I think it was last week, but as far as describing what you guys consider the process for the environmental reviews, has that been discussed yet?
Yes, it was last week.
That was last week. Well, there we
That
go.
was last week.
And I missed that. So I'll review the webinar for that.
Okay.
And to see, where we are, because I'm starting to think, I mean, it's July now, and if you guys are planning to announce awards November, we may end up trying to delay as much as we can just to make sure everything fits. I don't know. We'll see how. Yeah. If it feels like we're about a month to 6 weeks apart, and that's not a lot of. I mean, that's not a big deal in the grand scheme. And if there's a chance that we might be able to get awarded in this, and this could help us get, I mean, I'm willing to take that gamble. If we're going to, put in a competitive application and see if it can get awarded, we may delay some things, but I think I'm trying to figure out from leveraging and demonstrating the amount of local buy-in with this, in order to make us, sort of more competitive, how that sort of translates within the budget. I'm not sure if I'm asking the question appropriately. I guess because
you are.
Okay.
So what I would say to that is what we talked about last week, just one of the few highlights is with regards to the environmental review, we are going to go ahead for the approved applications. We're going to do the phase 1 environmental review. DCA is going to incur that cost. However, what we recommended for all the agencies, and so this is a quick reminder to everyone on the call, that if you're unsure about the status of your environmental for the land, you can send us your address and we can go ahead and look at the NEPA review, just to do a quick flood zone, how far are you from an airport, those basics, to make sure that there aren't any huge red flags that would keep the land from being developed on. Okay. So we can help out with that. It sounds like you already have that kind of done and you're somewhat in the clear.
We do. Yeah, we do have that done. And we do
so.
have, yeah, we've got the floodplain analysis, and we've made alterations in order to address the whole floodplain concern and the new thing. So I'm wondering if I can get you guys the address and probably get you guys what has been done, if that's appropriate, so that you can review that to see. Or
yeah, because for everyone we were mentioning this, so that should be fine. And just because we want to make sure that y'all aren't moving forward on something, not only for you, Evan, but for everyone on the call, that you're not moving forward on a piece of land that is not okay for whatever reason. And so I do know that that what you've done, I'm sure, is fabulous, but I don't know if it goes into the requirements that HUD has. And so that's also a piece to consider. I'm guessing they're probably pretty much the same, but there are nuances there that I am unfamiliar with, and Sam and the environmental team is far more, they know what they're doing there. So
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
Yeah.
I will look at getting that stuff to you guys early next week.
Okay.
Because yeah, that would be something, a serious thing, if for whatever reason there's a HUD concern there that's going to prevent this
Right.
there. So yeah.
Or
Okay.
and by the way, just not only for you, Evan, but for everyone, it's not even so much about not being able to build there. It's about what to mitigate and take care of. And
Mhm.
so even something like a brownfield or, noise from a road or something like that, it
Mhm.
just means that the cost is going to be a little bit greater in order to mitigate that particular piece. Like there's barriers that you can put into the ground to make sure that whatever vapors are coming up are not going to hurt anyone. You can make the walls thicker in order to make sure the noise from the road is not going to be coming into the development. So there's ways to mitigate issues for the most part. I
Yeah.
can't say that for everything, but there's ways to do that. It's just that if there is going to be additional cost, obviously that needs to go into this budget. And
Sure.
so again, that really speaks to the contingency piece, because you don't know, that there is a very rare caterpillar that needs to be relocated to a different part of Georgia in order to make sure that it thrives. So, exactly. So those kinds of things creep up.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's one of those things where, when we're looking at the leveraging piece and everything, what we're anticipating is a lot of the site prep and, the negotiations around those kind of things. We're not anticipating HOME-ARP covering necessarily.
Okay.
We're intending to use these other fund sources to cover a lot of the site prep. We're looking at the HOME-ARP specifically for the actual construction and potentially the FF&E for some of these the actual units.
Yeah.
That's sort of how we're envisioning it. However, it's one of those things. We do have some room, and I want to make sure that we do it right.
Right.
Or adhering to those things. So, okay. All right. Well, anyway, yeah, this has been enlightening anyway. And I think what I'm going to do, if you guys, apparently are okay with it, send you guys what has been done, in regards to the environmentals to date, to see, because that's definitely important information to know. If you guys, oh, well, actually, no, you can't do this. So we would want to know that.
Yes, and not only goes for you, Evan, but anyone else on the call is,
Anybody else.
to make sure that y'all are building in the right place. So that absolutely send us the information and just send it to HOME-ARP@dca.gov.
Absolutely.
So that's great. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, absolutely. That was good. Thank you for being the teacher in the moment.
All right. Well, I chased. I'm sorry. Maybe if I chased 3 people off the call after this. So, but
no,
anyway.
That's fine. No, it's all good. I think that I think it shows the scope of what we can do. That we can do something small that's 10 units, and it can also be the addition to a larger project. So, there's many ways that we can use the funds. So that's great. Yeah. So thank you. Do you have any other questions? Okay, no, okay, you're good. Okay, you just went on mute. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions? Okay. Well, at least as they say in DCA meetings, we can give you guys 5 minutes back in your day. I don't know if that really, I think most of us will just go get a, coffee or tea just to make sure we can handle the rest of the day. So, okay, so again, let me go back to our slides here. Talked about all these different things. So again, be as clear as possible in all your estimates. If not sure, please explain in the areas provided and or create areas to provide that information, just to let us, highlight to us and let us know what y'all are doing. You can include the actual estimates in your application if you'd like. That's absolutely fine. That's why we have the file folders there for you to go ahead and add those PDFs or scans to your application. Be sure to consider all the hidden costs, including the federal requirements which may pertain to your development. Okay. Be sure to include contingencies for unforeseen costs that make sense. Try not to budget too much or too little. Okay, so don't try and be too much on the too little side either. And then again, ask questions just like Evan did, because it helps us all in the process. So that's been great. And that's perfect. There's the questions for the forms in office. So if you guys have any additional questions, definitely send it to us in that form. That's where I got this last one from today about the audits. And yeah, just engage with us via email, and on that form site, send us your addresses for the land to allow us to take a look at that. And then, oh goodness, I can't really think of anything else. Jody, can you think of anything else, ma'am?
I cannot. You've done
Okay.
wonderful.
Okay, thanks. But we still have a lot of questions. So what we'll do is we will get that list on the site that talks about what you can and cannot spend the money on. We will also review, we have the information, you guys have the information to access the HUD exchange piece, which is really great. And then I think was it the audits? I think that was the other piece that we were going to do to make sure that you guys are kind of aware of what needs to be going on there. So, okay, well, I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.